West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
Coffee, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is Peter Boyles in for the fellows. They're back on Monday. I have today, tomorrow, Friday, and our Saturday show, and then it goes back to the guys. 710 KNUS, weather on a Thursday, 93, 85 tomorrow, and the motorcycle show is on Saturday, 86 degrees. This is our chance. We can really go over things. Blake Olson, it's time for the Olson Report. Plunk your magic twanger, Froggy.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Bump. There
I'm
he
going to
is.
have to watch that now. Now
we have to
that
find
you
it.
got me on the magic hanger Froggy.
Plunk. Adam, look real quick on YouTube. It was Uncle Andy's gang. Plunk your magic twanger, Froggy.
Okay.
Then the gremlin appeared.
I got to check it out.
It's
I
like,
will
well, you
do
could be the role of Froggy the Gremlin, man. Like, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
Plunk
That
your
would be an
magic-
honor.
plunk your magic twanger, Blake.
That would be an honor.
Do you think?
Well, it's been a
Yes.
fun week. What are you talking about next hour?
You? No, we're talking.
Oh,
We're open
okay.
lines. It's
Oh, okay, good.
but-
That should be fun.
well, there's all these rumors now that they got their guns turned on the AG, and then that. And here, I'll just read this to you. Remember when Bongino was telling that he regretted taking the FBI job? I've never heard that before. Have you ever heard that?
I've never heard that. You said Bongino, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to every one of his shows
Yeah.
the last 2 years, and I never heard him say that ever.
So-
I could be wrong. I mean,
Oh, I
he may
could
have
be
said it.
too. That's we gotta,
I knew that he said. Here's what I heard him say: I cannot say no when your country is asking you to do the duty. He couldn't say no, and it was hard for him to leave. He loved what he was doing, but he couldn't say no. So that's what I heard him say.
well, the similarities, and I read a lot yesterday about the Hollywood Madam Heidi Fleiss, and she had the book, the Little Black Book,
Right.
and they certainly had it, and it was explained to me why they had it for Players and Sugar, and I was mentioning that they had 4 locations to serve you, and they had like Dun and Bradstreet. They knew who everybody was. They knew their clients, and you and I could have not walked up and, hey, it's Peter and Blake, and we're here to buy some women. They would have never let us in. I mean, they had to know who people were, and if you're going to get on the guy's jet and go to a private island, don't you think they knew who was who?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
they did. It's difficult because we all want the deep state to go down. We all want it to be exposed, and we want it to happen right now. I mean, that's what I'm trying to fight. I'm trying to fight with myself right now. Come on, let's go. Who cares? Who cares what names are, what names are out there? Let's go. But what do I know? I mean, the pressures from within obviously are undescribable,
Yeah.
indescribable.
Well, I learned about the deep city.
Yes,
I mean,
yes, you did.
and it was to this day.
Firsthand.
Yeah, I contend that this young African American city councilman had become mayor, Michael Hancock, and he was the victim of all of this. No, he wasn't. He was a John. He was a trick, and But when the heat came down on me and came down on other media outlets and the Denver police to shut it all down, that didn't come from Michael Hancock. He wasn't even sworn in yet. That came from all the power brokers, all the fat cats, all the deep staters who went to any one of those 4 locations, and they had a deal.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you imagine just in Denver, maybe 20 blocks of power between the government buildings and the TV stations and the newspapers at the time and whatever. That's the power source. Then you take it at the national level in D.C. And then you go worldwide.
There.
Multiply. I mean,
International.
International.
Yes.
Wow.
And he was that guy.
Yep. No doubt about it.
All
right. Hang in there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
82 and partly cloudy. Kind of hazy out there. Expecting a high of 91, 92 today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, 6 Secret Service agents were suspended after last year's assassination attempt on 47 in Butler. According to multiple reports, the agency issued the suspensions in the aftermath of that attempted assassination in Pennsylvania, as we are just, 1 or 2 days away from the anniversary of that. And boy, do I remember that on a Saturday, being on the air with Peter on that hot July day. DJT has been meeting in D.C. with leaders of several African nations to discuss new economic opportunities. Israel and Hamas appear to be moving closer to a ceasefire agreement. NBC's Matt Bradley.
President Trump, who had said earlier this week that he was expecting a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas within the next couple of days, now coming out and saying that he expects to see it probably next week, despite the fact that we heard from Hamas last night with a statement saying that they would be releasing 10 of their hostages.
Hamas did not say when the release would occur. Israel wants to maintain troops in part of the Gaza Strip, a condition that could derail ongoing talks with Qatar. Meanwhile, Hamas rejecting Israel's call for Hamas to surrender. Ukraine says at least 2 people are dead after Russia's latest attack. Hundreds of drones attacked the Ukrainian capital of Kiev last night. The death toll in the central Texas flooding is now at least 120, with 170 still missing. Search and rescue operations are now in a recovery phase as one team from Colorado is there to help. DJT and First Lady Melania Trump will be there tomorrow. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is being tapped by 47 to be the interim NASA administrator. A mid-air collision in Canada has left 2 student pilots dead. It happened Tuesday in Manitoba. The president of the pilot school said the 2 were practicing takeoffs and landings in small single-engine planes when the crash happened. The Epstein story, as Pete and I were talking about, of course, Representative Tim Burchett from Tennessee.
I think the files existed at one time. I think they were destroyed in the previous administration. And I think if they'd ever had anything on Trump, it would have been out day one. Agreed. Under the Biden administration. And I think there's some very prominent people. There's Hollywood people, but I think there's world leaders too. And would it have caused economic disruption around the globe? Maybe. But I don't really care.
Yeah, that's a good point. In Boston, Rockies lose again 10-2 to the Red Sox on Wednesday. And Deion Sanders at the Big 12 Media Day says there needs to be a salary cap for college football, even though his sons went and just made millions of dollars in Boulder. How about the salary cap on advertising? These guys, these are the ones that started it all. I mean, for the most part, Deion pushed it. Now he wants a salary cap, which is a good idea. And there really is already a salary cap for most programs because they don't have the money that maybe 10 premier college football programs have. But So he wants a salary cap.
Yeah,
so.
it went on radio. Here, let me read this headline. Dan Bongino cries to Fox News about how much he hates his new FBI job.
Now, when did this happen?
This is Thursday. Says, there are many qualified people who gladly, expertly fill this job if Bongino can't handle it. Appearances on Fox News aren't doing the FBI two top officials any favors. Dan Bongino lamented Thursday morning, I think this is a week ago, about unhappy he is in the doodah. So,
well, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and you could see it. You could see the sound bites that I saw. He's trying to sell it as much as he could, but every one of his fans, we all know that he's just telling them what they told him to say, and he can't go any further. I mean, that's a tough situation for him. No win situation.
Indeed.
Lose. All right, 88 in Aurora, 87 in Lakewood, 89 in Denver. Pete continues on this extravaganza, this marathon. And it's been a great week, and he continues all the way through Saturday. In for Jeff and Billy. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Morning scattered showers and thunderstorms, then partly cloudy with afternoon and evening showers and thunderstorms again. Highs lower 90s, clearing tonight, a low near 60. Highs mid to upper 80s Friday, falling temperatures in the afternoon with showers and thunderstorms likely. Showers and thunderstorms will continue into Friday night, lower 80s with scattered showers and thunderstorms again Saturday. Weather presented by Colorado's Best Roofing. Has hail damaged your home or business? Colorado's Best Roofing offers expert hail damage assessments and assistance with insurance claims. Schedule your free inspection at roofingcolorado.com. Visit roofingcolorado.com today. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Morning again, everyone. Final hour. It's open lines on a Thursday, July 10, 2025. Good old 710 KNUS Denver's talk station. What a great day it's been. Tom Martino came out of the box with us at 6 o'clock, and we had Rolly Purifoy with us, and then Todd Hills and also Brando came with us. The Wide Open Saloon, Devil's Head, having a motorcycle show, and it's going to be this Saturday. Then we had Greg Carrillo with us, Top Fuel Racer, and then Open Lines, and now here we are. A reminder that tomorrow's show will be nostalgic and be, I think, Jimmy Walker, who gigged under the name of Dr. Daddy-O on KDKO, a Black O&O, in Denver, Colorado. And Daddy just got out of the hospital. And we had a great talk on the phone yesterday about all the different parts of his life and things that he's done. And I didn't know that James Brown, JB, was his son's godfather. And it'll go from there, and Brother Jeff's going to be with us as well. To the text messaging, again, you can do the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. Said Donald J. Trump had drained the swamp. Now he's restocking the Trump. The Trump. Now he's restocking the swamp. Let's go. Let's start it off in open lines. This is Ralph in Colorado Springs. Ralph, you're on the radio show. Good morning.
Good morning, Peter.
Hey, man.
The question I asked your screener is simply this. I'm 79, so I'll put it that way. Why does anyone believe anything that anyone in Washington says?
I agree.
We've been lied to so many times by so many people, and the text you had about restocking the swamp, but instead of alligators, they're using crocodiles this time.
Yeah, no,
and the question. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I look at this and look at the body language of Bongino. Look at the body language. Even, and I do think that Pam Bondi won't make next week. I think that they'll jettison her. Bongino, I guess, is threatening. It's really difficult. I mean, I think a guy like Bongino, who used to do the radio show, I do like him a lot. Can he sit there and go in the tank? That's the real question.
Here, long ago and far away, when I was running around Vietnam, fundamentally, I got the reputation of being the spy who didn't want to go out in the cold, if I can use that phrase. And the reason was this. In order to move up the hierarchy on rank or good assignments or whatever, you had to say whatever lie supported the president or supported the top general.
Of course.
So look at Washington and ask yourself, is it a pyramid? Of course it's a pyramid. We have a Republican at the top instead of a Democrat. BFD. I go back to Senator Russell was asked one time, long ago during Vietnam, about how he could tell when his good friend Lyndon Baines Johnson was lying. Russell thought about it. He's a senator. He'd been with Johnson for decades. And he looks at the reporter and says, son, whenever his lips are moving.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody is doing backflips over whatever is the newest, how shall I say, squirrel.
Sure.
But they're lying to us. They will always lie to us because they're politicians.
Let me ask,
why are we getting upset?
Well, once again, because your point is so well taken. If you come back to this and come back to Watergate, and one of the things I can claim is I've met almost every one of the Watergate, everyone, almost all of the men involved in Watergate. Of course, not Nixon, not Agnew. I never was involved or got a chance to talk. But the historians of Watergate, they begin with a question: was there or is there a cover-up? So I come to you, just answer this one in terms of this story of Jeffrey Epstein. Do you think that?
Of course.
All right, now, this is the second part. Why? In other words, what is it that they and that group of the people who surrounded Nixon, Erickman, Halderman, John Stewart, and was Eagle Crow, John Stewart Magruder, you can get down the list. What was it that they did not want you to see and or hear? So what is it in this Epstein story do you believe that they don't want you to hear, read, or see?
Well, let me go back to your analogy or your explanation on Watergate. Everyone that you have named was someone who wanted to get higher up in the hierarchy for power, for money, for sex. As a consequence, they would lie in order to climb the ladder. You're talking about Epstein. Well, that's just kind of the current, like I say, as a squirrel, it's let's take their attention off of this and we won't have to talk about other lies that might actually affect our pocketbooks.
Are they caught? Do you think the administrators are caught now as this has begun?
They're always caught. They're always on the treadmill trying to get higher up the pyramid. Does anyone go to Washington who does not want power, money, or sex? No. I answered the question. You're laughing. I should have waited long enough for you to answer that, but the answer is no.
No. Well,
it's the same pyramid. Different people, but, same theory.
I've mentioned this on the air as a part-time read as I'm reading Nietzsche, which I don't recommend, but Nietzsche had these two great lines. Nietzsche said, everything that the government has, it's taken from someone, it's stolen, and everything that the government says is a lie. And
yes,
and that's Nietzsche in the 19th century. And
let's go ahead.
So what do you do with all of this? And how does it end?
It hasn't ended yet, and it won't end anytime soon.
I don't think it's
the bottom line. The bottom line is whether or not it is a president or a king. His courtiers have got to support him in order to keep their positions or to get advancement.
Oh, well, of course.
Therefore, anyone who goes to where there is power or money available will sell their souls for that power, money, or sex.
Good call. We'll do it again. Thank you. Let's go here. We go to Paul in Castle Rock. Hey, Paul, you're on a radio show. Good morning.
Good morning. I want to tell you, I got into trouble because of Plunk Your Magic Twanger Froggy. I happened to be talking to, I was in law enforcement, or I had a command position, and I had a young female officer who was refighting battles that happened 20 years before on women's rights and law enforcement. And I kept referring her to policy and procedure. And she just kept harping and harping. And for some reason, I thought of that frog jumping out of a grandfather clock. And she said, well, I'm going to human resources. And I said, well, Plunk Your Magic Twanger Froggy.
There you go.
And, oh, man, did she blow up. She thought I was referring to something sexual.
And it wasn't. It was Froggy.
And I had to go in. Then they had a hearing on me. And I went in with some old tape that I was able to get off of the internet and showed them. I said, Froggy was a pain in the rear.
Hang on. I'm going to do you and me a favor. I don't know from what year this was. And we have to put him on hold so he can hear. Put him on. No, he can hear it. Ladies and gentlemen,
I can hear you.
All right, here we go. This is what we are talking about.
Plunk Your Magic Twanger, Froggy.
Hiya, kids, hiya. Remember? That was that was Froggy. And Froggy would say, hiya, kids, hiya, hiya. And he was like a bad influence.
Yes.
He was always doing something to Uncle Ed or Midnight to Cat. Do we have any Froggy talk? Do you have any? Nothing other than Plunk Your Magic Twanger. But
that's what stuck in my mind the most and we were young. I mean, TV was, young, and we ran around, and my grandmother didn't even have a TV, and she asked my mother, is that something nasty? My mother said, no, it's just something on TV.
It used to be Uncle Ed. And when I first watched it at my grandma's, because she had a TV, was Uncle Ed. And then Andy Devine, I'm not even Googling this because I remember Andy Devine took over the show. And it was a Saturday morning show for kids. And it had a cereal on it. It had Midnight to Cat. It had Midnight to Cat always just could say nice. And Froggy had kind of Froggy was Satan. I mean, Froggy and when they would say Plunk Your Magic Twanger Froggy, there'd be some fog or mist or something, and then this gremlin would show up. We go, hiya, kids, hiya, hiya.
Yeah.
And we knew that something was going to happen. And I was like a Froggy guy. My brother had my uncle got it for him, a rubber Froggy the Gremlin. And he was green, and he had big eyes, and you could squeeze him, and he made the squeak squeak noise. That was a big deal. But Froggy the Gremlin.
Yeah, and I think the cereal, wasn't it Shamu?
I think you're right. I mean, they had different ones. They had a Native American one, and they had, it was like you watched it on Saturday morning.
Yeah. And we could never afford Buster Brown shoes.
Oh, no. We Iron City Work shoes. The old man. Oh, yeah. He's going to last. Brogans.
Barefoot in the summer, and then you got a new pair of shoes for the school.
You got 2 pairs of new shoes a year. Back to school in Easter.
Yeah, but hey, one other quick thing about Andy Devine. You know, he was in Stagecoach.
Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful.
Yes, and I read John Wayne's life story, and in that, Andy Devine would always argue with Ford, the director, and he finally told Ford, he says, well, why don't you get Ward Bond? And then Andy Devine says, oh, yeah, he doesn't know how to drive a 6-4 Stagecoach.
Yeah. The role in John Wayne's life, and I'm a John Wayne film, Andy Devine in Stagecoach, which I think is just an incredible movie, and then Andy Devine is in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Yeah,
and he plays always the same kind. He's cowardly. He wants to eat a lot or drink, and remember, he was the sheriff in Shinbone. That was the name of the town, and he was the sheriff, but he would never stand up to liberty. And John Wayne is the man who shot Liberty Valance. That's a great song, by the way. But that's a great movie. And
I like Stagecoach. When
you and I
standing
both,
there,
we both. He's the Ringo Kid, man. He's he's the best. You got a good call going, man. Thank you so much for your time. To the wall, real quick. It's about Froggy. I always knew Froggy was a little rascal. Yeah, he was. But no, it was Froggy, like the little kid that had the deep voice on the Little Rascals. Yeah, that was Froggy too. But Froggy the Gremlin was when Uncle Andy or something, I don't know. Quit it, Peter. 303-696-1971. Open lines. Lines are open. I'm Peter Boyles. This is 710 KNUS. There you go. Was the only law. Gene Pitney. Huh? The man who shot Liberty Valance. Remember, print the legend. It's a great line. John Wayne was the man who shot Liberty Valance. It's a Thursday morning, the 10th morning of July, 2025. We go back to the phones. This is Arnie in Littleton. Hey, Arnie, thank you. You're on the show. Good morning.
Hey, Peter. It's good to talk to you.
Thank you.
I've associated with you for a long time. My son and I used to go to some of the shooting classes with you years ago.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, he got tired of the politics in Colorado and moved to Montana, which I don't know whether it's any better up there than it is here, but at least they don't have the gun crazies up there trying to pass laws.
That's very true.
Anyway, what I was calling about, and I had called yesterday to ask about the Second Amendment, but that would carry a much longer discussion, but I would like to enter my comments on the Epstein thing. And number one, to start off with something somebody said earlier. You know, this stuff is biblical. It goes back thousands of years, and it is no different today than it was thousands of years ago. And I am a Donald Trump supporter. I would vote for him in a third election. I'd vote for him in a fourth election. But you know what? I think he was on that airplane, and I think he went to that island. And I think he participated. And I don't have any qualms about it, but that's just what people with tons of money and big power jobs do.
Yeah, that's a very powerful call, and I think it's a very honest statement. The U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi, and the wheels are coming off, and they making these excuses that Arnie are just weak. And if you watch the body language, especially on Bongino, I mean, I think Bongino's a very decent stand-up guy, and you can see that he's squirming, and that mountains and truckloads and all this kind of stuff, and now suddenly there's nothing. And I can relate. I don't know if you remember the joke. I certainly do, where the woman comes home and catches her husband in bed with another woman, and she's screaming, and the guy gets up, puts his clothes on. The other woman puts her clothes on. The guy makes the bed. The other woman leaves, and he turns to his wife and says, now look, who do you want to believe, me or your lying eyes?
Yeah.
And that's what this is.
Isn't there a great country western song that's got that line in it?
Absolutely. But who do you believe? Art, who do you, I wrote this down again, in the Watergate historians who ask first, was there or is there a cover-up? Your response?
Yeah, there is.
So if it is a cover-up, then what is it that's being covered up?
What they're covering up is the fact that Donald Trump was a participant in all that stuff that went on that island.
That's
what I think.
If you go back to Stormy Daniels and other stories like Stormy Daniels, he's certainly capable. I mean, there wasn't any question about Stormy Daniels. Now, does that?
Well, historically, he hasn't exactly been a true blue husband type. You know, this is not the first rodeo, and it won't be his last. It could be he's trying to redeem himself somewhat basically you have to say at the end of his life, because he's almost. I turned whatever age he's at right now. I turned 82 this past April, and he's only a couple of years behind me, but you only have those last couple of years to try to make a difference, and I think he's trying to do that. But as far as did he participate? Yep, I believe it.
I know the feeling. Here's a text. If President Trump was on the list, why would he have made an issue and pushed so hard during the campaign to release the list? I believe that they can say things like Jack Kennedy talked about a missile gap. That was one of the ways that he defeated Richard Nixon. There was no missile gap. They had made that up. There was no way of. The Soviets were who they were. We were who we were, and they didn't have a gap. Lyndon Johnson in the well of the Senate saying that the Soviets were going to go to the moon and have rockets and launch the rockets down on America. He forgot to tell people it took 3 days to get there. And so, right now, the coin's in the air. But,
what is it that foreseeable? What is it that's going to happen? Well, Bongino and the lady that's the
Bondi
justice person,
Pam Bondi.
There's going to, as a matter of fact, I still go back to Donald Trump somewhat in his first term in office, and he was, in my opinion, he was a total failure at picking good people to fill roles. And he would pick a person. I mean, how many Department of Defense guys did he have? 5 or 6 or 7?
Well,
he could never get anybody that he could deal with.
Loyalty was the most important element. And in my reading about Trump's cabinet positions or advisors, you had to be, number one, loyal to Donald Trump. And if the Lincoln's cabinet, and they were rivals and didn't like each other, and I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. FDR's cabinet was really diverse, and they would fight amongst each other. In Donald Trump's cabinet, whatever Donald Trump says goes.
Well, here's my way of also looking at it. If right now, let's say that Donald Trump was a Democrat.
Ooh.
Do you think that there would be any member of the Democrat Party, the way they act today, that wouldn't be out there supporting him, even if he did all these things?
Of course they would. They covered up for Joe Biden and how, Joe Biden, if he lost one more IQ point, you'd have to water him, and let's meet someday, and when your son comes to town, he's a good young man. Thank you for your time. It's good to hear your voice.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We go to Nick. Nick, you're on a radio show. It's Thursday. Good morning, 710 KNUS.
Good morning. If Trump, if it comes out that Trump participated, he's toast, and we're going to have the vice president become the president. It's that simple. But what's interesting, and I want to read. There's a good book that I heard about, Mark Levin. I know you disagree with him a lot about power.
Yep.
And when you are in politics, you need power to get anything done. But hopefully you use that power for positive things. Or you can use it for negative things. I mean, negative, you could talk about Adolf Hitler using power negatively and Abraham Lincoln using it positively. So eventually the truth will come out, and if he participated, he is toast.
Are you sure? I mean, could he survive it? If in fact...
No.
Why?
No.
Why?
Because the Democrats are so much better at being hyenas and wolves, and they'll go after him, and all the people in the Republican Party that don't like him will go after him, and the combination will basically take him down, in my opinion. That's the one advantage the Democrats have. They march in lockstep.
But look, in spite of what people think that there's another term after this, constitutionally, that's right. Thank you. So
there's no.
I think that if in fact that's true, I think he could survive. He'd be weakened.
How could he survive?
I just know my gut reaction is that what did Grace Slick say? And when the truth is found to be lies, and something inside you dies. But I think that the president may have enough support that he could come through it. At the same time,
well, you might be right.
Yeah,
you might be right, and it all depends on how the tea leaves shake out.
Well, remember Richard Nixon. If it wasn't for John Dean, when John Dean goes to testify, John Dean gives it up. It's over after John Dean speaks. Mm-hmm. But up until then, it's he said, she said, and all the Nixon loyalists and others, they hadn't even gotten to the plumbers yet. And Erickman and Haldeman resigned. And Spiro Agnew, for other reasons, bailed. And Nixon honestly thought he could survive. And he could not. But he got it because he lied. It's like Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton lost his law license not because of Monica Lewinsky. He lost his law license because he lied to a grand jury.
That's true.
And so far, other than trying to push it aside, Donald Trump hasn't made any statements about this. So he said, we're talking about this guy. Well, that always led me to believe, wait a minute, you're protesting too much.
He thinks he protests too much.
Yeah,
yes.
There you got it, Shakespeare. So
let me just point out two things. About the missile gap, I know this is kind of an aside.
No, please, no, it's great.
The Russians purposely put this story together that we are way behind because they wanted this country to spend itself into oblivion. In other words, waste a lot of money on military that we really didn't need. That's why they did that. And they succeeded to a large extent.
But also the United States knew. I mean, you go back to the deep state, the CIA, and they're so weak and terrible and stupid and do the most ridiculous things, and not only in that period, but the periods that follow. But the belief was, and remember, they were called ICBMs. Remember that?
Right.
And I remember they could take out Pittsburgh. That was the big deal. I mean, I've met 100 different guys in the conversation. Didn't matter where you lived. You were a target for the Russians, for the Soviets. And my Uncle Gene, who was like my mentor, because of the steel mills and the coal mines, Pittsburgh was going to be the second place hit after D.C. There. And later when you thought about it, it takes a long time to make steel, to make this, to make that, to make a tank or a missile. But I still went with it. Or Lyndon Johnson, there's this great moment in Lyndon Johnson's in the well of the Senate crying about the Soviets being on the moon, and I think it was after Sputnik, that they were going to rain missiles down on the United States of America. How long does it take a rocket to get from the moon to the United States? Like 3 days.
With the technology we had back then, 3 days.
Yeah. Thank you. Wonderful call. Thanks, Nick. Everybody hang on. It's 9:46, 14 before the hour. 710 KNUS. We got a couple lines open. It's a Thursday. Stay here. Coming up on the last segment, it's 9:51. We got about 2 minutes. Forget it. Try the caller? No? Try not. Okay. Let me reset tomorrow. And by the way, we have tons of text messaging I never got a chance to read. Let me tell you about what tomorrow's show is going to be. I'm Peter Boyles. I'm in for the fellows. Dr. Daddio tomorrow, Jimmy Walker. And again, we had a radio legend on this morning, led the show with Tom Martino at 6 o'clock. You're giving these guys a shot. And Jimmy's like the rest of us. He's getting there. And he was Dr. Daddio. That was his moniker on the air. And the Daddio House Party and KDKO they're called O&O, owned and operated. It was a black station. They were very, very rare. Oftentimes black stations were fronted by white money, but Jimmy had his station, and he was the afternoon drive guy, the Daddio show. And Jimmy just got out of the hospital, and we talked last night, and we were trading lines. And he would do a line, and I would do a line that he had done, and his favorite one was, and we've got some of the bumpers, but live in a living color. And then Daddy would say, "What color am I coming through to you?" And he had the house party. But he booked and promoted the Jacksons before they had become the big name that they became. James Brown, we're going to talk about JB tomorrow. James Brown is his son's godfather. And joining us tomorrow will be Brother Jeff. Brother Jeff will be in the studio with us, and we'll do an hour with Jeff, and then we'll swing into Jimmy Walker, and we'll have Jimmy on the show. So, just looking forward to it. And Mike Connor, that guy that met Jeffrey Epstein, he's going to come in tomorrow morning at 6. So, all is well in the world. Thank you. It is a Thursday. Take care of yourselves. Thanks, Blake Olson. I'm Peter Boyles. Thank you, Adam. See you tomorrow morning. We'll do it at 6 a.m. here on 710 KNUS.